Hey everyone, my name is Spencer Bauke, and welcome to week 28 of Workout Wednesday Power BI edition. This week we are going to be hopping into Power Query to explore web scraping, and not only just web scraping, but using a custom function to loop through some different websites and pull all that data together through one query. As you can see, this is the visual that we're trying to create. This visual shows the difference between wins and losses every year for Major League Baseball teams from the years 2020, 2000 to 2020. So in order to do this, we're going to have to loop through different teams' individual year results and combine them into one data set. You can see here that this is an example of 2020 standings, and this is actually the table that we're going to be pulling down here, but we're going to walk through how to do that in just one moment. Let's review our requirements here. Our requirements are just to create a web query that scrapes our desired years, 2000 through 2020, from the baseball-reference.com website. We're going to do some minor cleansing, and then we're going to add a new column. We're going to put a dimension table in here, which is actually going to be this website from that same baseball-reference.com website. And then we're going to create our visual. Our data set this week is from websites. We're going to be pulling the data from websites. So there is no actual data set to download this week. We're going to be grabbing it from the web. So let me go ahead and grab this HTML, as I'm going to use this as an example to pull into Power Query. So let's open Power Query, and we can right click, or we can do new source, and we're going to connect to web. Now it's pretty easy just to pull in one website. So we're going to just enter in the URL. I'm going to click OK. We're going to wait for that to load, and it should load up different tables for us to view here in just 1 second. This is what I'm seeing. All right, so this is going to pop up, and it should give us different options for the different tables that we saw when we were looking at that website. Great. So if we click on this, we can see this is not exactly what we want. I cheated, and I kind of know. Oh, maybe I don't. Hold on. There you go. This is the table that we want down here. This Major League Baseball detailed standing. So I'm going to click on that. Click OK. And there you go. Pretty easy. We just brought in the data from the table that we saw there. We can go in here and click Advanced Editor, and we can come in here and see what website is being referenced. Let's see, we can come down here. We can see the different fields that were being brought in. So pretty easy to just bring in one website here. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to just keep doing 2020, 2019, 2018, right, and have 20 queries here and then combine them all. Now you can theoretically do that, although that is not the most efficient way to do that. And I'm going to show you a workaround for doing that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start out and make a new query using a blank query, and that is what is shown here in the first step of the requirements. Create a list of desired years using blank query. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these brackets to create a list of the years 2000 to 2020. And when I type that, when I type these two dots, it will automatically fill in the rest of the years. Now, there's a couple cool things that I was exploring with this capability. You can actually, with these brackets, you could do A to Z. I forgot, probably have to wrap them in quotes here. right? Fills in the rest of the list. Now, I don't know necessarily what you would need that for, but just showing that with these two dots that you're able to fill in a beginning to an end. And in this case, we do that with the years that we want to scrape. That is 2000 to 2020. So if we go back, what we need to do now is we need to use another blank query to create a function that cycles through our desired years. So this is a tiny bit trickier. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here, new query, blank query. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in here. We're going to say, actually here, let's go back to our first query and let's see, we're going to convert this to a table first. Yeah, that's fine. We only have one column. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to year. So now this field we're going to refer to as year. So knowing that, what we're going to put in here is we're going to say year. So that's our column from the first table. It's a number, right? We're going to declare that. And then we're going to put this in, write the rest of our query for this web scrape. Now let me, as a reminder, if you come here, you go to Advanced Editor, you can see that this is the same, you have your source and then this is your web browser contents. We're going to use a command kind of like this. So we're going to say let, but it's that same format where we're saying let our source equal, and we're going to use web page. Let's see here. Oh, it is. Sorry. Web page in here. And then we're going to take the web contents. And then that is where what we're going to do originally is we're going to put in this HTML. Right here. Okay. So this is just the 1 year. And what we're doing here is we have this variable right here, right? Year. We can also see that in our URL, the year appears in the URL. So that's what we're actually going to want to loop through and change every time we run this query. When we run this query through the list that we created. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sub this out, this 2020. I'm just going to hit space. And I'm going to say and, because I want to, well, first actually I want to close that quotes to make this text. And then I'm going to say and text from my year variable. And year and the rest of this string. So you can see what I've done here. I've just replaced this year that was in the URL with the year that I'm going to get from the field in the list that I created. So that's the only command that I need to put in here. What I am going to specify is I'm going to specify what table I'm going to take, and in this case, and I've already looked this up, so I'm not going to walk through how I did it, but it's referred to as table number 7 in the HTML. So I know that that is the 7th table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 6, 7. This is the 7th table. Oh, because it starts at 0, right? So this is the 7th table. And you can do that by going into the HTML code for the website, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to shortcut and just tell you that that is what it is, and then I'm going to say all of that within data as I defined here. I'm going to hit enter. You can see now this is turned into a function right here with the fx. So I've created, here, let me just can't see, this is the query right here, just to make sure that you can see it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our first list that we then converted to a table. And then what we're going to do is we are going to add a column to this table with just one column. We're going to add another column. And we're going to invoke a custom function. That is the function that we just built. And what we're going to do is we are going to run query2, which is the function we just created. And we're going to say, okay, run query2. And we're going to run year. Okay, we're going to run year, this column right here, through this function. So let's click OK. Let's say OK. Now what this is doing is this is going to run through each line of my, this is going to run through each line of that table, 2000, 2001, etc., all the way to 2020. And it's going to run that query for every value in that list. And it will return a custom column, as you can see here, for each one of these rows. Okay, so now what do we do? Okay, we're going to come here. You can see that there, this is just loaded. It's expandable. So we're going to click here. Now you can see all the different fields that came from that table right here. So I'm going to unclick this. I'm not going to use the original column name as a prefix. That would just maybe like query2 dot rank, query2 dot 2. I want to unclick this. I don't want to do that here necessarily. So I'm going to click OK. Well, now you can see that for every year, it's expanded to include every team. And you can see that it ran through all the different years. So much easier. So much easier than going through and pulling 2000, 2001, 2002, and then merging them all together. So hopefully that helps explain that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through, and I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning here, and just make sure that the data types are what I want them to be. So I'm going to come through here. I know this. I want to change this to a decimal. Let's see, all these fields, I can really change the type to the decimal. And I think that's really all I need right now. So let's go back to our requirements. So we expanded the table. Okay, so two things that we're going to do to this data before we load it. After exploring this, we can see that there are these breaks in here. There's the averages, and I'm sure this comes from, yeah, you can see that it's also pulling this line here in this table. Well, we don't really want to see the average in our data set because we're going to be computing that on our own. So let's come here and let's take out the value of average. Click OK. I'm done taking that out now. What I'm going to do next is I am going to already changed the data types, and now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to add a custom column that says games above 500. And when people say 500 in baseball terms, it's just, how many more wins do you have than losses? And so we're going to take our W minus RL, and we're just clicking OK. So games above 500. So if you have a positive games above 500, it means you won 32 more games than you lost, which the higher that number, the better you are that year, because the ultimate goal is to win more games than you lose. So now we're done. We're done with this. We do need, real quick, to add this dimension table. So we're going to add that into our data model as another just quick web query. But most of our heavy lifting in terms of running that loop is complete. Oops, gotta go back here real quick. Now make sure we pick the right table here. Okay. So again, I kind of know because I explored this data a little bit. It's table 27 down here. What this really is going to do is this is going to align all of our team names to a franchise ID. Teams over time move, they change their names, they, stuff like that. So ultimately, there's a franchise ID that those team names roll up to, and that's what we're actually going to use to disaggregate or that's what we're going to use to disaggregate by the teams is this franchise ID. So we're going to click OK. That's just going to pull in, we can rename that team names. And then we're just, we can rename this query run. Let's just name it season results. Sweet. All right. So now we got one more thing, excuse me. What I do need to do in our team names query is convert this first and last year to years. And then what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to say, well, actually here, let me do this a different way. I do need to replace the values with present. Let's just replace it with 2021. And then that enables me to change this to a whole number. This will be a whole number. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to filter this. I'm going to filter this last year because really, if your last year in the league, the Philadelphia Athletics, was 1876, I don't need that row in this data. It's not relevant to me. So my last year in the league needs to be greater than or equal to 2000, because if it's not greater than or equal to 2000, doesn't really concern me. So I'm going to click OK. Excuse me. That's going to bring in the remaining values for my dimension table. So that is it. Now I am ready to go. I have all the formatting. I've run my loop. I've got my data out of the correct website, and now I'm going to click close and apply. And I'm going to let this data load. So hopefully you were able to see how much time that could save you looking through the different web pages and just allowing you to loop through. Now, in this example, it works really well because of the structure of the website and because of the simplistic nature of the pages I'm trying to scrape, right? I mean, the only difference between the standings of 1999 2000 and 2020 is the number that is in that website. So the structure of the URL, the structure of the website made it really easy to do this. It's, I don't want you to think it's going to be this easy every time, but this example can really help you learn how to run through that list and loop through using that custom function. So now that our data has been loaded, we can see it here in this little preview. Things are looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a data model. We don't actually need this. This one is, we're not going to use that one. So we can come here to season results, and we know, because I'm telling you, that the team is going to be related to the full team name. Should be one to many, exactly. Great. So let's go back to our canvas. So now we've created our data model. We are ready to build our report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by clicking this text box, and I always like to provide users with essentially, I just like to provide users with some context when building the report. So I always start out with a title page because, a title bar, because people want to know when they come into a report what it is they're looking at, right? And so we're going to say this is Major League Baseball seasons. And I like to use this little pipe. That's what I call it. Team results 2000 to 2020. I'm going to push that all the way across. I'm going to blow this up here, and we're going to call this 36. Maybe that's a little too big. 36, we'll call it 32. And then this will be a little bit smaller. We'll call this 20. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this background color. I'm going to make this text pop a little bit more by coloring it white. And I'm going to bold this first part of the title. So, pretty easy way to start your report in a nicely formatted way. And I'm going to give it space. We're going to space it, give that a little padding on the edge, and there you go. It's pretty nice way to start your visualization. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this bar chart that is just a standard viz that comes with Power BI. You don't have to go into the App Store or anything like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the year as the axis. We're going to use our games above 500 as our values. Oh, let's see. Oh, wrong table. Okay, it looks like, and this is just, it looks like that Power Query did not automatically identify our custom column, games above 500, as a number. So I'm going to go in there and just clarify that for the data model so that when it loads, it'll always load like that. So give that 1 second here. But essentially, we're going to show this bar chart where our x-axis is the seasons, our y-axis is the games above 500, and then we're going to break it out in small multiples by each team. Okay, so that is complete. Now we're going to, we could have just used that. We're going to come in here, we're going to drop it in there, and then make sure that's a sum, correct. Year is the axis. Okay. And I guess it's showing 0 right now. It actually makes a lot of sense because in any given year, there's going to be the same amount of games won and the same amount of games lost over the course of a baseball season, right? We got to break it out by team to actually see that difference. So if you actually go down in the visualizations pane, you're going to see this option for small multiples. What I'm going to do is I am going to bring that in right here. So now you're going to see this team populate. We're going to actually have an error, and I'm going to show you how to fix that really quick. So Anaheim Angels is only showing up to year 2004, and then we have Los Angeles Angels and Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So that's the different teams I was talking about. So that is why we're going to use our franchise ID. And you can see in our franchise ID, we actually have some blanks here, and we have the Anaheim franchise ID. Looks like it stops 2015, it stops at the same time. So if you've investigated yourself and you've drilled through and you've looked at all the different stuff, what you're going to notice in our dimension table is that the Angels of Anaheim Angels run from 97 to 2004, and then these Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim go from 1961 to 2001. The only issue is if we go here and look at our fact table, and we go do a little search for, let's do Angel, we can see that there are now a team here called the Los Angeles Angels, not Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and not the Anaheim Angels. They are now the Los Angeles Angels. Well, that did not get included in our dimension table. So what do we do? This, there's a variety of things you can do. Um, this is just a way that I'm going to do it. Really, this was just off the top of my head. I tried to do replace values of Los Angeles Angels. Um, that it didn't necessarily work. Here's how I did. I'm going to duplicate it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out to everything but Anaheim Angels, because I know that this is what the franchise ID is supposed to be. This is what we're using. Okay, so it's a separate query. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace Anaheim Angels with Los Angeles Angels. I'm going to click OK. Now what I'm going to do, this first year last thing is fine. You could correct these as well to make sure everything. Actually, let's do that. Let's do team ID as Los Angeles Angels LAA, because we're just going to use this. And I don't know the year, so I'm just going to leave those be. Now, but what I'm going to do is I am going to append these two queries. Team names is my first one. Team name is my second one. I'm going to click OK. What ends up happening is now at the very bottom, I have my Los Angeles Angels, and I have my ANA. So all three of those teams should now be grouped together. So now I'm going to go back to my Power BI desktop. So I'm going to load my model out of Power Query. These queries are going to evaluate. Those are the ones that I had fixed for that issue. I'm going to wait here and let those load. Great. So now we go back and we can see that everything is aligned. Now our Anaheim Angels are here with all of the years. Arizona is Diamondbacks, and you can see, you can scroll through the teams. They all have results for each year. How cool is that? Okay, so now one last thing before we fit this into the visualization and we just run with it is I want to color each of these bars by whether or not they had more or less than 0 wins. So essentially, did you have a winning season or did you have a losing season? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go down to data colors. And what you'll see is right now this light blue is controlling this light blue, right? Or it could be gray, or it could be, whatever you wanted that color to be. Well, what I'm going to do is you can see this little function button right next to it. I'm going to click that function. And I'm going to use that games above 500 as a rule to color each of these bars. So if I'm going to say, if the value is greater than 0 and less than, I'll leave that blank. So if it's greater than 0, that means it's a winning season. So we're going to color those, we'll just say blue. And then we're going to have a new rule, greater than, less than 0, right? I'm going to leave that blank as less than 0. Then it's going to be kind of a lighter gray. Okay, so now I'm going to click OK. Boom, you can see my teams that won more than they lost have blue. The teams that lost more than they won have gray for every year. Sweet. So now we have all the basic formatting ready to go. The last thing that we need to do is we need to fit this all on the same screen. So if you come up here to grid layout, you can control the number of rows and columns that are in your grid. I know, just off the top of my head, there are 30 teams here. So that makes a nice 6x5, 5x6 coordinate to fit all the teams. I do know that these are kind of wide. They're wider visuals than they are tall. So I'm going to want there to be 6 rows, 6 rows and 5 columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my columns turn 5 here. And I'm going to say 6 rows. So they're all going to try and fit in there. Well, unfortunately, that's not all going to be able to fit into one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off. And when you click off and you go here to your format pane, you're now formatting the actual canvas, not anything on the canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to my page size, because what I essentially want to do is I want to create a page that is big enough to handle all of this chart elements and not have to scroll. So I've already done my homework a little bit because I've already done this. And I know that 2400 by 1600 is what it's going to take this, stretch it across the screen, and not look absolutely terrible while doing it. And so we can just bring that down just a tad. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to stretch it all the way across. Let's make it slightly bigger. Going to kind of center that. We're going to give it one more space before the M because there you go. Okay, so this is our visual. We can now view it differently because we can go to page and we can fit it to width and we can see it more in depth now. But we can come in here and we can see our visualization, and we can glean some insights out of this. And I guess I never really noticed that this team, St. Louis Cardinals, have essentially had one losing season in the past 20 years. That is nuts to me. The Yankees, that makes sense. Just thinking about their success as a organization. But you can start to go down and see some of these stories with this visualization. You can further format this visual, taking out some of the grids, etc. Here. Let's see. You can let's see. Not pod area. Maybe grid layout. Yeah, grid layout. You can take out grid lines if you want, and then we can essentially format the text size on the small multiple, which is our teams. And so we're going to blow the teams up just a little bit so we can see them better, and then we're just going to make that font a little more noticeable, semi-bold. So there you go. This is it. We have created the visual that was the challenge for this week. So, there's some different steps that were in here to do this. From creating a list, converting it to a table, running it through a function, and ultimately creating our visualization. So, this wasn't easy. It wasn't very quick. But kudos to you if you tried it and then now ultimately got it using this video. Hopefully this was helpful in you understanding some of the cool features available to you in Power Query. If you hadn't touched these before, then we're really, really glad that you're able to investigate some of those new techniques. Thanks everyone for watching this video, and we will see you next week.